Hello and welcome to the Federal. After years of speculation and rumors, it is now official that China is building a super dam on Yarlung-Sangpo River, known as Brahmaputra in India. The controversial project was approved on December 25th, triggering ecological as well as security concern in downstream India. To discuss how serious is the threat for India and the larger impact of the dam, we have with us geospatial expert Dr. Y. Nityanandam, who has widely written on the project and its implication. Dr. Nityanandam is professor and head of geospatial research program at Takshila Institution, Bengaluru. Welcome to the Federal, sir. To begin with, tell our viewers what will be the impact of the China's decision to construct world's largest dam on the lower reaches of Yarlung-Sangpo River.
I'll talk about the impacts of this. Before that, I'll first share some of the map for the viewers to understand what are we talking about. Right, we're talking about a river which originates in Tibet, and then at a particular point, it takes direction towards India. Right, that we call it as Great U Bend, and
Mhm.
thereafter, once it enters India's Arunachal Pradesh, and then it is known as River Brahmaputra, right? Because it contributes to the mainstream Brahmaputra river, and
Okay.
thereafter it enters into Bangladesh. Over there, it is known as Jamuna River. So the dam that is proposed, right? Until last week we used to call it as a proposed dam because the dam was initially proposed few years ago. Started with a rumor stating that there's something like a mega dam is coming in closer to India's border, and thereafter it was told like it can be used as a weapon and possibility of water being diverted into other side of it and so on. But
Mm.
then in last 5 year plan, because China has every 5 year plan, right? The 5 year plan, which is going to complete by 2025, has an indication that there are certain projects which they will commit to complete it, and then they'll say that the dam will be built. When it is mentioned in that 5 year plan, it has gained traction to people since it is right next to the border. You can see this is the way the water is being taking its own natural u-turn right now. But this is a
Mm.
place where the Medong County exists, where they said like you will be the dam will be constructed here. Since it is right on top of the thing, probably it's a distance of less than 30 40 kilometers from the line of actual control, so it's very close to India's border. The area is also known to be, a place where the natural hazards exist. You have landslides, susceptibility in this region, and then you do have other, calamities includes frequent floods and more things on the lower downstream. Now, when you construct such dam in right on top of you, right, it can create some changes in the pattern. First of all, I'm not getting into whether China is holding a water or going to allow it freely. That's a second thing. The first thing, any construction process will improve, impact the downstream. Especially construction project of this massive size will create a huge impact on the downstream nations. That can trigger the existing, disasters which are prone in this area, and also it can create stress on the existing threats that this area faces, like the climate change and other anthropogenic activity where people are carrying out in this area. All this will get multiple pressures, and then it will put pressure on people on that downstream areas.
So the major concern in India is that, firstly, the China might use this project as a weapon against India,
Yeah.
and secondly, it might also dry down the Brahmaputra at the at the lower stream. So how is
Yeah.
these concerns valid?
Right. So, first for that, we need to understand and see the map of rivers which are connecting and forming. Rivers are not just depend on the mainstream. There are certain, tributaries, and then further it is, collected, and then it forms a mainstream river, right? So, in this case, the literature says only 30 to 40% of Brahmaputra is being contributed from the Yarlung-Sangpo. Yarlung-Sangpo gets its water source mainly by glacier melting. and other rains which in the region gets, but it gets a massive amount of rain. um, in this case, where the rainfall is higher in the region, which collects more of water, along with that glacier melting do happens, and then it contributes to Brahmaputra. Whereas the other set of ideology exists where people says Brahmaputra is not majorly depend on this. The certain component of that is being provided, but
Mostly,
when it
its water is fed by its from the catchment areas.
so, but 30 to 40% is again not too small, right? If 30 to 40% is correct, it's not too small. But then the challenge for identifying this exact contribution would come only when we monitor the flow at different points appropriately, and when we monitor the the rainfall, the quantum of rainfall which is received and subsequently which is measured at the flow from the flow of river. Then only we can make such exact measurement. But right now in literature it says 30 to 40%, but that again it's not too small, right? So any
Mm.
impact on this 30 to 40% will also impact the downstream waters, but it can't, I don't think it will dry, it will create a dryness in the river. You can't do that because the kind of technology which is being likely to be used for the construction of dam is also not clear at this moment, right? Whether they will allow the water to flow freely, where only it is used to pass through the turbines and then electricity can be generated, or they're going to store water like a big reservoir that we can see it in Three Gorges Dam, and
Mm.
thereafter it will be controlled and load subsequently. So we are not sure about the technology at this moment. So then only we can able to say whether it will dry up the subsequent streams or it will allow the water to flow as it is, but it will minimize the flow and it will minimize the resourceful soil which brings through the river and so on. That's not sure at this moment.
So mostly, China is building run of the river hydel projects over Sangpo River. So do you think there will be major change in that this time?
See, I believe the dam construction is not a one project and at one particular place the efforts need to be taken, because it is something where you need to do a certain amount of construction and the upstream aspect as well. So in our study, I'll share that maps here. You can show it. In our study, um, we have looked at what are the land use changes happened as soon as the announcement were made. Let's say as soon as announcement were made, the land use has changed, which means when I say land use change, the land which was originally used as for just grazing and other stuffs, where settlements are coming up, where the lands are converted into an agricultural land. So they are trying to do the construction at different upstream areas, and indeed many projects, as you said, being constructed already on the upstream, where the dams are implement dams are brought out, right? So the moment the dams are there, which is more like you're reducing the flow, altering it at different altitudes at already, and then the final climax need to be at the end, where at that Yarlung-Sangpo's stops, right before it becomes in turns out to be a Brahmaputra. That's at Medang County. So this is something where we are yet to see the visible construction or visible activities happening at Medang County. But then a lot of visits are happening. A lot of engineers, a lot of top leaders are coming there in last couple of years, which is an indicator of something is likely to happen there as well, right?
Okay. So let me play a devil's advocate here. India is also building several hydel projects in Arunachal Pradesh and Sikkim, severely impacting the ecology of Brahmaputra and Tista rivers. And in both these cases, it concerns riparian state Bangladesh. So, if India can prioritize its energy need over geopolitics and ecology, why won't China do that? One may argue. So,
Yeah,
what is
one
your
may
take on
Okay, one may argue in that way, but I have also specified in my writing earlier that if it is really for a geopolitical, if it is really for a renewable energy, project, it is just for satisfying China's energy target. That is like in 2060 they become a net neutral state, right? But if it
that?
is for that, and India is similar one for 2070 as a target, right? If it is just for that, it's fine. But then there are certain consensus. I believe the things are slightly different in compared to India and China, right? So why people are going for, first of all, for this kind of renewable energy sources. This is clean source which goes for a longer time, and it is sustainable, and it is available in your region. People also taps. It doesn't mean like they're not tapping other resources, whether India or in terms of China also tapping other resources like renewable energy sources, including solar and other ways. But now this is something which is big and which is consistent, right? So that is why this energy is tapped. In this case, if the difference I want to bring out here is, if the rules which are laid down, if the impacts are looked at properly, if the monitoring aspects are clear, despite China claims like they're strict in enforcing the environmental policies and other aspects, well, that implemented on ground at a serious cases when it comes to government project is still a question, right? If that is there, it's fine. But then here it is coming up at right next to a border, where generally any dam construction process impacts both upstream and also downstream. But then upstream to some extent, where you're grabbing the land, you're creating seismic activity, triggering seismic activity over there, and things like that, where a reservoir exists. Whereas downstream activity generally takes a toll of a restricted water flow, and the non-availability of resourceful soils and things like that. Now, but then here, any damage which can likely to happen, any disaster which can likely to happen, will only impact the downstream area, because it's right next to us. 20-30 kilometers is nothing compared to the river flow, right? So,
Mhm.
if you're building at an area where you can potentially use and weaponize against the country, that is a concern. And the size in which the dam is envisaged, you are comparing a dam which we are making in India and comparing what is being proposed there. The dams are different in size, right? So, the dam, if you tap it, if you use a technology where the impacts are minimum, and if you do strict environmental monitoring, and if you're not harming much, then it's fine. Whereas in this case, it is not sure, and it is announced as a world largest dam, right? The current world largest dam, it's Three Gorges Dam. It's around
Mhm.
20,000 kind of
22,000 people.
megahertz of that kind, 2 gigahertz, right? Technical 2 gigahertz of energy production and something like that. Whereas here, it's three times more. And if it is
Mhm.
on top of you, it can create any kind of impact. That's a concern, because if it happens, let's say in internal part of Yarlung-Sangpo, like nobody would bother it, right? But it's
Mhm.
happening right at the head of us. So that is why it is a big concern for us.
Okay, so what, according to you, should be India's response to China's this dam building spree, particularly when we don't have any formal water sharing agreement with China?
Yeah, I think here it's an interesting question, because we don't have formal treaties or water sharing understanding in place. Even we need to remember there's a couple of MOUs, I think, to share the data between two countries, right?
Yeah,
In the
but
past.
that has also not been renewed.
That's not been renewed. Indeed, we were buying data from them, but it is not renewed after the tense in the geopolitical situations. Now, given those scenarios, we need to bring it together. I would say both India and Bangladesh should go together and bring out the possible consequences of this dam. And I'm sure India is bringing it in multiple platforms and it's raising its concern, as given its proximity and potential disaster it can create to the subsequent downstream areas. In other than that, regional diplomacy probably is an important thing. And again, I would say, while looking at this, we also need to look at domestic enhancement of water storage or water management stuffs, because while we know that there is a possible chances of impact, we need to manage our things in a efficient way, manner. And if any possible pressure that we can give it through international forum, we need to bring in. And if there is something which we can do to avoid the situation, we should able to do that. And I'm sure people would be doing that as well.